When damage occurs, why quit when we can just rebuild? Hey, this is Steve, and this is the Career Competitor Coach's Corner. In 1992, a massive fire engulfed Windsor Castle, one of the official residences of the Queen of Great Britain at the time. Over 100 rooms were damaged in the blaze, including 9 staterooms and the ceremonial St. George's Hall. The restoration took 5 years and £37 million to restore the historic landmark to its former glory. Now, if you are a royalist, you probably don't blink at such an investment towards restoration being made. However, if you were raised by a father like mine, you would hear numerous ways a sum of money like that could have been allocated. While it is likely some of those funds came from the British taxpayer, the royal family opted to use this moment as a time to generate funds outside of how they typically make their millions. In a historic act, the royal family opened the doors of Buckingham Palace to the public to raise money for the refurbishment. For the first time in history, a commoner like you or I could pay to have access to one of the most inaccessible locations in the world. How easy would it have been to just take the loss of Windsor Castle and accept that, hey, the building had a great run. We kept it in the family for almost 1,000 years. Most family residences don't last 1,000 days. There's no shame in abandoning the site now that is damaged. But not only was this a moment where a rebuild was considered in relation to the immediate damage to the building, it was seen as an opportunity to draw others in to assist with the rebuild as well. Over the years, I have consistently watched many athletes and professionals give up on themselves, watching folks quit on what was once a dream or a mission that embodied who they were and what they represented, long before they'd given themselves a real chance to be successful. Deep down, it simply didn't mean enough, at least to them. Maybe it meant something to others, but for whatever reason, they didn't notice an outside investment great enough to warrant continuing, and it was a time to quit. Now, wherever you lie on being a royalist or not, the fact is, royal landmarks mean something to millions, arguably billions of people the world over. Folks that want to know that a place that was housed centuries of royals remains intact to do so for so many more centuries to come. While the majority of us cannot relate to having good reason to invest £37 million into a home project, that investment was towards a rebuild that meant something to many. But if we don't know that, how can we possibly see or understand that investment? I've spent a decent amount of time in my adult life wondering why folks quit in their pursuit of a goal. And I certainly don't exclude myself from this either. I can't help but wonder, what could have come of that boy band I put together during lunch break back when I was 10 years old? My broken dreams aside, it is only since I started my own business 15 months ago that I've been able to establish a theory I feel strongly about that I would like to present to you today. Quitting happens because of a lack of knowledge. We quit because we don't know why we should keep going. We quit because we don't know what we are capable of. We quit because we don't know the impact that what we are building is having on others, possibly even others we have never met. It's all knowledge-based. If only we knew why not to quit, then maybe we might choose to rebuild when the temptation to quit arises. To rebuild, however, is to invest. And like any investment, we must know that it's being put towards good use. Are you sure that you are worth making an investment in? If not, how can you educate yourself on knowing why you are. When the damage at Windsor Castle had been assessed, there would have been a conversation, I assume, about whether it was worth the rebuild before the financing strategy for it would be addressed. So often we are guilty of jumping to what is required to take on a rebuilding process before addressing our own value. Without realizing it, we are creating an image of a mountain to climb when the reality is we are looking at a rebuild of something that has already got a foundation. Ourselves. But if we don't stop and assess our value and whether we are worth investing in, then how can we ever know if the work required behind the rebuild is something we can handle? If you're remodeling a home that has taken on fire and smoke damage, you address the damage before deciding the actions to take. So when we take a hit and are damaged because of it, instead of considering how to react, reaction being keep going or quitting, why not diagnose the damage done to evaluate the rebuild required? How are you doing after the damage? What has the damage exposed? Where do you begin rectifying the damage caused? Your awareness to check in before responding is to be cognizant that you are a human being, one whose damage goes far beyond the surface when you encounter hardship. Yet so often, there is a surface-level response when we encounter difficulty, and it's not as black and white as quit or keep going. So how do we become knowledgeable enough so that quitting becomes a much less tempting option? We do what anyone does when they need knowledge. We ask questions. We ask ourselves consistently why we are doing what we are doing, even when things are going well. We ask questions of ourselves through assessments and resourcing to educate ourselves on what we are truly capable of. And we regularly ask others what our work means to them and how our work is impacting them. Because when we consider quitting and they find out, that's when they will reiterate what they have already told us at a time when we desperately need to hear it. When you equip yourself with this type of information, you don't give up on those fitness or weight loss goals. You don't quit on that side hustle you started because there's more work required than you had planned for. And you don't throw away your career because the company you work for isn't one that brings you fulfillment. In all scenarios like this, we have the ability to stop and re-emphasize that why behind why we started in the first place. We look to our capabilities and pinpoint what we need to double down on to get through this challenging time. And we talk to others that we know believe in us and are vested in our success. Brick by brick, room by room, you start to assess the damage. You isolate where there might be extreme damage, then you focus in on the foundation that surrounds that area. Address what is required, and you start the rebuild. So, while the late Queen Elizabeth and co. discovered tourists the world over deemed it worthwhile to cover the £37 million cost for the remodel in Windsor, you can sit there safely knowing that you will never need to acquire such investment. After all, when done correctly, you'll soon acquire the knowledge required to keep going and invest in your rebuild. An investment that I would argue is priceless. Thanks for listening to my Coach's Corner. I hope you took away something that can be of impact to you and the work that you're doing at the moment. Please let me know your thoughts. I'd love some insight on how you were impacted by this message. But in the meantime, we have interviews being recorded, so much more content on the Career Competitor podcast for you to be coming back and checking out real soon. But in the meantime, best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on within your world. And I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Bye for now.